The morning of October 17th, 2001, began like any other in the small town of Bridgewater, Connecticut. The leaves were changing colors, painting the landscape in vibrant shades of orange and red. Michael Atkinson, a 37-year-old insurance adjuster, kissed his wife Sarah goodbye as he did every weekday. "I'll pick up dinner on my way home," he promised, grabbing his worn leather briefcase. Their two children, Emma and Ben, 12 and 9 at the time, were finishing breakfast at the kitchen table. Michael ruffled Ben's hair and planted a quick kiss on Emma's forehead before heading out. "Dad, don't forget my science project is tomorrow," Emma called after him. "I won't, sweetheart. We'll finish it tonight," Michael replied with a reassuring smile. The family watched through the kitchen window as he climbed into his 1997 navy blue Ford Taurus and backed out of the driveway. The car disappeared around the corner, headed toward Interstate 84 for his 45-minute commute to Hartford. But Michael never arrived at work that day. At 9:30 a.m., his assistant called Sarah, concerned about his absence. Michael had never missed a meeting without notice in his 15 years with New England Mutual Insurance. By noon, Sarah had called every hospital between Bridgewater and Hartford. By evening, the local police had issued a missing persons report and begun searching along Michael's usual route. Days turned into weeks. The Taurus never showed up at any repair shops, junkyards, or impound lots. Michael's credit cards remained unused, his bank accounts untouched. His passport sat in the family safe. Police found no evidence of foul play, financial troubles, or marital discord. "It's like he just vanished," Detective James Morelli told Sarah 6 months after the disappearance. "We've explored every lead, Mrs. Atkinson." Us. What the detective didn't say was that most missing adult cases eventually pointed to one of 3 scenarios: voluntary disappearance, foul play, or accident. Without evidence supporting any of these theories, the investigation stalled. Sarah refused to believe Michael had abandoned them. He wouldn't leave his children, she insisted during countless interviews. Something happened to him, something nobody's found yet. Emma and Ben grew up with a father-shaped hole in their lives. Emma kept the half-finished science project in her closet for years, unwilling to complete it without him. Ben developed a habit of watching the driveway from his bedroom window, especially around dinner time. For Sarah, grief came in agonizing waves. There was no body to bury, no definitive loss to mourn, just the maddening purgatory of not knowing. Should she hold on to hope or accept that Michael was gone forever? In the absence of answers, she chose to keep their family home intact, preserving Michael's clothes in his closet, his favorite mug in the kitchen cabinet, his reading glasses on the nightstand. "Until I know what happened," she told her sister during a particularly difficult Christmas, "I can't say goodbye." The Atkinson case became a footnote in local police records. Theories circulated through the town: an affair, witness protection, amnesia, but interest gradually waned. The annual candlelight vigils grew smaller. Media coverage dwindled to occasional anniversary mentions. By 2006, Detective Morelli had retired and the case file was archived. The state police occasionally ran Michael's fingerprints and DNA through updated databases, but nothing ever matched. His driver's license photo joined the thousands of others on missing persons websites and community bulletin boards. The children reached milestones without their father. Emma's high school graduation in 2007, Ben's first basketball championship in 2009. Sarah dated occasionally at her family's urging, but never remarried. "I'm still legally married," she would remind them, "and I still don't know what happened to my husband." Life continued, but the mystery remained an open wound for the Atkinsons. Every unidentified body found in Connecticut sparked both dread and hope. Every phone call from an unknown number caused Sarah's heart to race. Every car that resembled Michael's old Taurus made Ben do a double-take. In 2011, on the 10th anniversary of Michael's disappearance, the local newspaper ran a feature article. The reporter interviewed the family, former colleagues, and investigators. The piece concluded with a quote from Emma, now 22. The hardest part isn't just missing him, it's the not knowing. It's having to live with a question mark where there should be an ending. What none of them realized was that an ending did exist. It had been there all along, hidden beneath the surface of Mount Tom Pond, a small body of water just 8 miles from their home, along a seldom-used alternate route Michael occasionally took during heavy traffic days. The truth lay suspended in time and murky water, waiting for technology and chance to bring it into the light. And in the spring of 2021, nearly 20 years after Michael Atkinson drove away from his family for the last time, that's exactly what would happen. By 2015, the Atkinson family had developed what Sarah called their new normal. Emma, now 26, had graduated from college and moved to Boston to work as a clinical psychologist, specializing in grief counseling. Ben, 23, stayed closer to home, attending graduate school at Yale and visiting his mother every weekend. Sarah had transformed their family's tragedy into purpose, founding a support network for families of missing persons in Connecticut. Her living room often hosted gatherings where people shared stories, resources, and sometimes just silent understanding. The group's motto, Hope Without Closure, reflected Sarah's own approach to Michael's absence. "People ask me how I've survived 20 years of not knowing," Sarah told a documentary filmmaker who interviewed her for a series on unsolved disappearances. "The truth is, you don't get over it. You just learn to carry it differently as time passes." The police file on Michael Atkinson had grown thin. Lieutenant Diana Reeves, who inherited the cold case after Detective Morelli's retirement, reviewed it annually, but had little to work with. The last significant update had been in 2013, when a man matching Michael's description was spotted in Seattle. It proved to be a false lead, like all the others. In cases without a body, without evidence of a crime, and without financial or digital footprints, we're extremely limited, Lieutenant Reeves explained during a phone call with Sarah on the 15th anniversary of Michael's disappearance. "But I want you to know we haven't forgotten him." Technology had advanced dramatically since 2001. Social media, facial recognition software, and DNA databases offered new investigative tools, but none had produced results for the Atkinsons. Sarah kept Michael's profile updated on missing persons websites and occasionally paid for targeted online ads seeking information. Life's milestones continued to arrive, each one a bittersweet reminder of Michael's absence. In 2018, Emma married her college sweetheart David in a ceremony that featured an empty chair in the front row, Michael's photograph placed on the seat with a white rose. During the father-daughter dance, Emma chose to dance with her brother Ben, both of them moving to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, their father's favorite song. "Dad would have loved you," Emma told David on their wedding night. "He would have asked a million questions about your medical practice and probably bored you with insurance stories." Ben, who had grown to resemble Michael in both appearance and mannerisms, struggled differently with the loss. As a data scientist, he approached the mystery with analytical precision, creating complex algorithms to search news archives and accident reports for patterns that might explain his father's disappearance. His apartment walls were covered with maps, timelines, and weather reports from October 2001. "I know it might seem obsessive," Ben told his therapist, "but I can't shake the feeling that we missed something obvious, something right in front of us." Sarah maintained Michael's home office exactly as he'd left it, dusting it weekly but disturbing nothing else. His coffee mug still sat on the coaster beside his computer monitor, a 2001 desktop model that had long since become obsolete. The calendar on the wall remained frozen on October 2001, the 17th circled in red ink, a reminder of a dental appointment he was scheduled to attend after work. By 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic forced Sarah's support group to meet virtually. During one Zoom session, a new member asked the question that friends had learned not to pose: "Do you think he's still alive?" Sarah's answer had evolved over the years. "I think the statistical probability is extremely low," she replied, with the practiced tone of someone who had considered every possibility. But without evidence to the contrary, I choose to focus on finding answers rather than assumptions. The pandemic lockdowns actually accelerated Ben's research. Working remotely gave him more time to dive into his father's case. He created a website documenting every detail of Michael's disappearance and developed an app that allowed users to report potential sightings. In December 2020, Ben called his mother with news that momentarily rekindled their hope. A retired detective from Vermont had responded to the website, recalling a similar case from 2003. A man whose vehicle was discovered in a lake 2 years after he vanished, having missed a curve on a foggy night. "The thing is, Mom, they only found the car because the lake's water level dropped during a drought," Ben explained. "What if Dad's car went into water somewhere? What if no one could see it from the road?" Sarah had considered this possibility years ago. The police had checked bridges and known bodies of water along Michael's regular route. But as Ben pointed out, if Michael had taken an alternate path that morning, something he occasionally did when traffic was heavy, there were dozens of small ponds and reservoirs that might never have been thoroughly searched. "We need to look at satellite imagery," Ben said. "Historical images from different seasons, when water levels change or when there's less vegetation." Little did they know that 38 miles away in New Haven, Connecticut, a geology graduate student named Robert Chen was already making a discovery that would answer the questions that had haunted the Atkinson family for nearly 2 decades. Robert Chen hadn't set out to solve a decades-old missing person case. The 26-year-old graduate student was researching the impact of climate change on Connecticut's freshwater ecosystems, comparing historical satellite imagery to track shoreline changes in the state's ponds and lakes. On a cold February morning in 2021, Robert sat in his cramped apartment, sipping lukewarm coffee as he examined Google Earth's historical imagery of Mount Tom Pond. The small body of water, situated near the intersection of Route 202 and Bantam Road, wasn't particularly remarkable, just one of dozens he was analyzing for his dissertation. "Let's see what you looked like in 2002. Robert muttered to himself, adjusting the time slider on the Google Earth interface. As the image rendered, something caught his attention, an unusual shape beneath the water's surface, visible only because the image had been taken during a drought period when the water was exceptionally clear and low. Near the pond's northern edge, approximately 20 feet from shore, was what appeared to be a rectangular object with a metallic glint. Robert zoomed in, his academic curiosity piqued. The object had a distinctive shape that seemed out of place in the natural environment. Approximately 15 feet long and 6 feet wide, it bore the unmistakable outline of a car. "That can't be right," he said, leaning closer to his monitor. He toggled through various years of imagery. The object wasn't visible in most photographs due to water clarity, vegetation, or image quality, but in several drought years, 2002, 2012, and 2016, the shape was unmistakable. Robert wasn't sure what to do with his discovery. As a scientist, he was trained to verify findings before drawing conclusions. He downloaded the images, enhanced them using his department's imaging software, and consulted a colleague in forensic anthropology. "You need to call the police," his colleague advised after reviewing the images. "That's definitely a vehicle, and it's been there a long time." On February 23, 2021, Robert made the call that would finally bring answers to the Atkinson family. The Connecticut State Police dive team arrived at Mount Tom Pond the following morning. Despite the winter conditions, they proceeded with the recovery operation, breaking through a thin layer of ice near the shoreline. Lieutenant Diana Reeves stood on the shore, watching the divers disappear beneath the surface. After 20 minutes, a diver emerged, giving a solemn nod. There was indeed a vehicle submerged in the pond, a navy blue Ford Taurus. The recovery process took hours. As a tow truck slowly winched the car from its watery grave, onlookers could see the vehicle was covered in silt and aquatic vegetation. The license plate, though corroded, was still legible. Connecticut tag JWP241. Letty Reeves immediately ran the plate through the database. The match confirmed what she had suspected. The vehicle belonged to Michael Atkinson, missing since October 17th, 2001. "We've found him," she whispered, a complex mix of emotions washing over her. After 19 years in law enforcement, she knew this moment represented both an ending and a beginning, closure for a family, but also the pain of confirmed loss. Inside the vehicle, divers had discovered human remains in the driver's seat, still secured by a seatbelt. The car's front end was severely damaged, consistent with a high-speed impact into the water. The driver's side window was intact, but the passenger side window was shattered, possibly from the impact. Before contacting the Atkinson family, Lieutenant Reeves wanted to gather as much information as possible. The medical examiner would need to officially identify the remains, but the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. Michael Atkinson had been found. The investigation quickly pieced together what likely happened that October morning in 2001. Just 2 miles from the main highway, Route 202 curved sharply around Mount Tom Pond. Traffic records showed roadwork and a major accident on I-84 that morning, which would explain why Michael might have taken this alternate route. Weather reports from that day indicated heavy fog in the early morning hours. The section of road had no guardrail in 2001, though one had been installed in 2008 after 2 other vehicles nearly went into the pond. It appeared Michael had missed the curve, driving straight into the water at considerable speed. Once submerged, the vehicle would have been nearly impossible to spot from the road. The pond's murky water, combined with its location below road level, created a perfect hiding place. Subsequent investigations revealed that the initial search for Michael had indeed checked local bodies of water, but focused primarily on those along his usual route. "Mount Tom Pond wasn't on our radar," admitted the now-retired Detective Morelli when interviewed by police. "We concentrated our search along I-84 and the primary alternate routes. This particular road wasn't known to be one he used regularly." The most difficult task now fell to Lieutenant Reeves, informing the family. After consulting with a victim advocate, she decided to visit Sarah Atkinson in person. No one should receive this kind of news over the phone, even after 20 years of waiting. As Laltist, Reeves drove to the Atkinson home. She reflected on the remarkable coincidence that had led to this discovery. If not for Robert Chen's research, if not for his attention to detail, if not for the specific satellite images taken during drought years, Michael might have remained hidden for decades more. Technology that didn't exist when Michael disappeared had finally revealed the truth, not through sophisticated algorithms or DNA analysis, but through a graduate student examining historical Google Earth images for an entirely unrelated purpose. The lieutenant parked outside the modest 2-story house that Sarah had maintained all these years. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the door, carrying the weight of 20 years' uncertainty that was about to end. Sarah Atkinson was watering her houseplants when the doorbell rang. Through the frosted glass of her front door, she could make out the silhouette of a uniformed officer. Her heart skipped a beat. Even after 20 years, unexpected visits from law enforcement triggered both hope and dread. "Mrs. Atkinson?" Lieutenant Diana Reeves asked when Sarah opened the door. "I'm Lieutenant Reeves with the Connecticut State Police. May I come in?" Sarah nodded, her throat suddenly dry. She led the officer to the living room, the walls lined with family photos, many featuring Michael, frozen in time at age 37. "We've found your husband," Lieutenant Reeves said gently after they were seated. "His car was recovered from Mount Tom Pond this morning." The room seemed to tilt. For 20 years, Sarah had imagined countless scenarios of how this moment might unfold. None had prepared her for the reality. "Was he—" Sarah couldn't finish the question. "Yes," Lieutenant Reeves confirmed. "We believe he died the morning he disappeared. The medical examiner will determine the exact cause, but preliminary findings suggest an accident. He appears to have missed a curve in foggy conditions." Sarah covered her mouth with her hand, tears welling in her eyes. The news was devastating yet liberating. The cruel limbo of uncertainty finally over. Michael hadn't abandoned them. He hadn't been taken. A simple, tragic accident had stolen him away. "I need to call my children," Sarah whispered. Within hours, Emma and Ben had returned to their childhood home. The three sat together in the kitchen, processing the news as lost. Reeves explained how Robert Chen's discovery had led to the recovery. "So technology that didn't even exist when Dad disappeared is what finally found him?" Ben asked, his voice thick with emotion. "That's right," Lieutenant Reeves replied. "Google didn't launch Earth until 2005, and the historical imagery feature came later. Without satellite imagery and Mr. Chen's research, your father might never have been found." Emma, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "All these years, he was just 8 miles from home." Her voice broke. "We drove past that pond countless times." The days that followed brought a whirlwind of activity. The medical examiner confirmed through dental records that the remains were indeed Michael Atkinson's. The cause of death was determined to be drowning following the accident. His personal effects: a wallet with family photos still inside, his wedding ring, his watch stopped at 7:43 a.m., were returned to the family in sealed evidence bags. The story of Michael's discovery made national headlines. "Missing man found after 20 years, thanks to Google Earth." News vans lined the street outside the Atkinson home. Interview requests flooded in. Robert Chen, the graduate student whose careful observation had solved the mystery, declined most media appearances, uncomfortable with being called a hero. "I was just doing my research," he told Ben when they met for coffee. "I'm only sorry it took so long for someone to notice." Planning Michael's funeral after 2 decades presented unique challenges. The Atkinsons opted for a private ceremony, followed by a larger memorial service, where old friends, former colleagues, and community members who had supported the search could pay their respects. On a crisp March morning, the family finally laid Michael to rest. The half-finished science project that Emma had preserved was placed in his casket, a poignant symbol of the interrupted life they had all endured. At the memorial service, Sarah stood at the podium, looking out at the gathered mourners. "For 20 years, we lived in suspension, neither able to fully grieve nor truly move forward. Today, we can finally say goodbye." Ben's eulogy focused on how the circumstances of his father's discovery had shaped his own life path. "My pursuit of data science was driven by the hope that technology could answer questions traditional methods couldn't. I never imagined that something as simple as a satellite image would provide the answer we sought for so long." Emma, now visibly pregnant with her first child, spoke about legacy. "Our father will never meet his grandchildren, but his story will be part of their heritage. They'll know him through our memories and through this extraordinary conclusion to our family's longest chapter." The case prompted changes within Connecticut law enforcement. Reeves initiated a review of all unsolved missing persons cases, specifically looking for disappearances near bodies of water that might benefit from examination of historical satellite imagery. Within 6 months, 2 other cold cases had been resolved using similar methods. The Atkinson family established a foundation in Michael's name, dedicated to leveraging technology in the search for missing persons. The Foundation's first project funded research to develop algorithms specifically designed to identify submerged vehicles in satellite imagery. For Sarah, the confirmation of Michael's death brought an unexpected peace. The house that had served as a shrine to his memory gradually transformed. His clothes were donated. His office was eventually converted into a nursery for grandchildren. The mug was washed and returned to regular use, a way of keeping him present in their daily lives rather than frozen in the past. On the first anniversary of Michael's discovery, Sarah visited Mount Tom Pond alone. Standing at the edge of the water, she reflected on the cruel coincidence that had taken Michael from them and the remarkable circumstances that had finally brought him home. A guardrail now protected the curve where Michael's car had left the road. A small memorial plaque, installed with county permission, marked the spot. It read simply, "Michael Atkinson, lost 2001, found 2021, forever loved." Sarah placed flowers beneath the plaque, then looked up at the sky, the same sky that satellites had photographed, capturing the image that would eventually lead to answers. Technology had created a bridge across time, connecting the family to the truth that had been hiding in plain sight for 20 years. "We found you, Michael," she whispered to the gentle ripples on the pond's surface. "And now we can all finally move forward."
If you want to hear the rest of this story, please leave a comment on this video and subscribe.